Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be talking about this little guy behind me, the Renault Twizy. Now, for those of you who don't know already, the Renault Twizy is a small electric car. It's actually classed as a quadricycle. It's fully electric. It's got a range of about 40 miles, and I've modified mine with wider wheels, performance modification with this little black box, which about doubles the horsepower and gives it a shed load of torque. Also, LED headlights. This is all well and good, but what's it like to drive? Well, if you've seen my other videos, you'll know that I have an absolute blast of a time in this thing. It is the most fun car that I've ever had. It is insanely fun. But one of the things people don't realise is this car doesn't have any heating. Actually, it doesn't have any windows unless you buy these aftermarket ones. And even worse, if you don't order them with the doors from the factory, there's no way of adding them after. Some people actually prefer not to have any windows and doors and just have it kind of open like this, which I can kind of understand because it is kind of a cross between a quad bike, a motorbike, and a really, really small car. So what's it like to live with in the winter? In the UK, we do have some pretty bad winters. Not as bad as some places, but they're pretty horrible. So how is it with no heating then in the freezing cold? This is probably one of the things that puts people off getting this car. Well, today I'm going to show you, and I'm also going to show you my little tips and tricks for if you've got this car, if you're thinking of getting it, the best way to stay warm in it. So the first winter I had this car, I got one of these heated bum pad things. This is actually a different one. The first one was just a heated bum pad, but then I kind of went to having something that was on my back as well to help keep me really nice and toasty. Now this thing is really, really effective. Like, they heat up so quick. It was really cheap on Amazon, and it basically just plugs into the Twizy's accessory socket, which is in there. Now this is quite a low power one, so don't go putting any crazy heaters on this one. Something like 40 watts will be enough. Otherwise the little car might pop a fuse. Now the next thing I did, because I was getting really cold feet, was put a little piece of insulating foam around the pedal areas, because there's some big old holes behind there and the air just comes straight through. After that I started getting a bit technical, and I actually fitted a small little heater under here. It's very, very low power, but it's enough to actually blow a little bit of warm air onto your feet to take the edge off, and it really does work. And that's controlled by this little gadget, which is actually like a little remote monitor, so I can monitor the 12-volt battery in the car, and it remotely controls the heater. You can just click that and then the heater turns on, and then you get a nice bit of hot air coming out by your feet. You might have heard some electric cars, the range goes down when they're cold. That is true, most of them do this. So if you can time your charging to end just before you go out, then it means the battery is a bit warmer, and in the cold, everything helps to get more range out of the battery. The Twizy's got a really effective heated front screen. It really is good. So it is cold in here, but I'm not cold. So my feet and my butt are lovely and toasty. Suspension's hard. I'm going over to my trusty charging point. Hopefully it's going to be working. Big sister, the Renault Zoe. So I've got a Type 2. Because the Twizy has a 3-pin plug on the front of it, you have to use an adapter so that you can use kind of like charging points that are dotted around. So this particular one, I'll leave a link in the description. This is probably the best one to get because it's got an on-off switch. So there's your Type 2 connector, and that just goes in there. We need to plug the Twizy in first. So Twizy just goes into the 3-pin plug socket as normal, and then this end goes in there. Right at the moment there where it wasn't charging, I was thinking that's not good, but it's all sorted now. And then it took a little while to get going, which is unusual for this charge point. It usually is pretty quick to start. So I've got to my destination, got my trusty coffee as well, which is going to help keep me warm. So this journey is about 20 miles, so 20 miles there, 20 miles back. It's like a kind of local retail park. And I've got over here and I've got 40% left. Now, when I left, it was on 90%. It wasn't fully charged. So I think realistically with this car in the winter, you know, if you do charge before you actually kind of get in it and set out, you're probably going to get about 35 miles range. And that's with the Powerbox set to eco mode. There's 3 settings on that. You can have eco, normal and sport. Needless to say, the sport mode is really good fun, but it will drain the battery. So we're going to leave that there charging. I'm going to go and get some bits. Right, I've been talking to someone at this charge point for a while. There is a few issues with this charging point. I think its voltage is a little bit high and it kind of stops the charge on the Twizy. I think I've mentioned this before in a couple of videos, but I managed to get a bit of charge in anyway, so time to head home. It is cold, it's really cold now, but I've got my foot blower on, so the window cleared up pretty nicely, pretty quickly. It is freezing out. I don't know what the temperature is out there, but it is damn cold. Just want this traffic to move though. This ain't good, guys. I'm down to 9% battery. I've got like probably a couple of miles to go. It's saying 2 on my remaining miles, so this is going to be a bit tight, I reckon. A little bit tight. Oh dear. He's bleeping at me. Oh my god, I'm gonna run out. I think I'm gonna run out. 5%. No, I might just do it. I might just do this. I blimmin' made it. I blimmin' made it. It's still beeping at me. 3%. That's the closest I've ever been to not making it home in this thing. Unreal. So that's it, guys. I've thawed out now. To be honest, it wasn't really that bad, but that's longer than I would normally do in the Twizy, like a 20-mile kind of trip, which is 40 miles round trip. I usually use the Twizy for kind of short, very, very short distances, like just nipping down the local shops. Not that usually that far. But the little car is such a blast. It is so much fun, even if it does get a bit chilly in there. If you're going to get one of these little cars, I highly recommend getting the Powerbox, because it enables you to flick to eco, to normal, to sport mode. You can set different profiles. It transforms the car completely. Like, I wouldn't drive one without that now. I really wouldn't, because it just transforms the performance of it. It pulls away a lot more quicker. You know, in sport mode, it will probably annihilate most things 0 to 30 because it's such a light little car. I would do the wheel upgrade. I'd stick bigger, wider wheels on it. If you want to kind of get rid of handling issues, especially in the wet as well, it can get a little bit skippy around with the standard wheels. And also get LED headlight bulbs and side lights, because it just makes such a difference to the look of the car, and also the visibility is so much better than using these kind of rubbish old glow H4 light things. I'd also recommend getting the windows. They do rattle a little bit, but it's much better than having the kind of cold winter air blasting into your face, unless you like that kind of thing. Just wear a good coat. The heated seat warmer pad, that is a must as well. As I mentioned before, if you're plugging that into the accessory socket, then there is a bit of a limit on how much current you can actually pull. So I think 40 to 45 watts is the max you want to pull from that socket. I think it goes up to about 60 watts, but I wouldn't push it that far, probably mainly because of the wiring. The other thing, if you really want to go as far as I did, you can actually install a little heater, because if you wire the heater to the main battery, and you've got to do this directly so that you get big enough wires going to the main 12-volt battery, what you'll actually find is that the DC to DC converter actually powers the heater, not the battery. So as long as you don't kind of, you know, leave the heater running, I mean, it won't run for long if you turn the car power off, because it will flatten the battery. But it can work. You can have 200 watts of heat blasting onto your feet, and it will do that all day long, as long as the actual car main battery, traction battery, is charged. Then you can do that, and that really makes a difference with the insulation underneath to stop the air coming through the holes in the footwell. That really makes a lot of difference to keeping your feet warm. Other than that, you can't really seal the cabin much, even with the windows, because there's always going to be holes. It's the way the car's been designed, and you know, there is a bit of an airflow coming through to stop the windows and stuff misting up. But overall, I just love it. I drive it all year round, winter, rain, shine, snow, whatever, and it is awesome. One thing I will mention in the snow is that the standard car has regen braking. So basically, when you take your foot off the accelerator, it will start braking, but it's a very, very conservative amount. It's not a lot at all. Now with the Powerbox, you can increase that, so you can turn up the amount of regen braking force you have, and you can adjust this as a percentage on the Powerbox. But be warned, make sure if it's really super wet and slippery out, if it's icy, then make sure that regen is turned down to safe levels, because I've had a situation before where I basically 360'd the car, because what happens is that the force on the back wheels is so great that if it loses traction, there's no kind of traction control or anything clever like that. It will basically the car will just spin. Fortunately for me, it happened on a wide road and there wasn't many cars about, and I was actually only doing about 30 miles an hour, so it come to a halt pretty quick because it doesn't weigh a lot. There's also a feature on the Powerbox which allows you to turn regen braking off completely, which is kind of weird because it feels like you're just not going to stop. But another thing to be aware of on the Twizy is that the regen braking comes in as soon as you hit that brake pedal. There's no proportional regen coming in. It's not like a percentage. The harder you push the brake down, it literally turns on. But it will proportionally adjust based on speed. So the faster you're going, the lower it will start, and as you start to sort of come to a halt, the braking will kind of increase. So it is a clever system, but it has its limitations. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this little video and it's given you some more insight to the Twizy. If you're looking at getting one, if you're thinking of trying one out, go and do it because you won't regret it. I mean, even if you just take it out for a day, it'll be the best day you've ever had in a four-wheel vehicle, I can assure you. So anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, do the usual stuff, and I'll catch you in the next video.